Now we have the Malacca Straits closed to Israel. Malaysia bans all shipping from Israel, including Israel flagged anything, or even if there's containers heading to Israel, those ships holding those containers are flagged and you're not allowed to berth, port, or transit through Malaysian territorial waters. And then, it started to get a little bit bigger. Once Zim tried to dock there, and they're like, no way. They took their Navy out, and it was like, nope, you're not allowed in. So Zim is one of the major, if not the largest, maritime transportation company in Israel. And Malaysia said, nope, you're not docking. You're not going to pick up and transfer cargo like they normally do. So keep on moving. So then I wanted to pick up these maps here. These are the territorial, agreed on limits. So there's different treaties with different, distances offshore. And you can see where the 1970 treaty is, the 69, the 1909 treaty of Thailand, where their border might be maritime. So we're going to follow some lines here. They don't control the entire Malacca Strait, obviously not. They only control half of it. But then again, if Indonesia gets involved, this is where it would get interesting. That is the purple line, is Indonesia's maritime territorial borders. And you'll see just a little bit to the east of Singapore, Malaysia overlaps that. So if both of these nations decide to blockade, they could actually blockade off the entire Malacca Strait if they wanted to. Now, how deeply will Indonesia get involved in this? Not sure. But you can see the territorial waters, how far out they go in either direction for each nation. And you will get funneled in until you come around in Singapore, and then there's just no way to go around that. If either of those countries come together in an agreement and say, you're not coming through our waters, then we have a serious problem. And taking a look at the shipping that comes through, this is off Maritime Awareness Project. You can go there. It's interactive. I left all the info so you can click the same choices. It's interactive, so you can turn on and on or off different variables on the map here that you want to play with. Layering is very nice, but this is all the ships that are traveling through, and you can see quite the artery. And the bottleneck would be right where the yellow and purple line go together. Indonesia's not been drawn into it yet, but being a Muslim nation, I really don't think it's going to be too much longer until they are. A lot of the container traffic coming out of now the Malacca Straits going that southern route, so they'll bend down there to like the 8 o'clock position and head right around Africa. They can't transit the Red Sea any longer. Now, if we look through at the maritime approaches to Singapore, if they do decide to, you see those V's right there, that's where Indonesia and Malaysia overlap, where the double V's are. I guess they could try to cut through, but it is so difficult in those mud flats to get through. I don't know if you've ever been there, but it gets muddy, and the water's not very clear. It's an estuary. Low tide is different than high. Your ships would never really make it through. Anything of volume. Smaller, yeah, perhaps, but anything on the supercarrier size with Supermax, no way. So you can see how the bottleneck could take place there. And if it did, that means they would have to run all the way around Australia. So this is a heat map of our current day's traffic. And you see how coming off the Malacca Strait, that really deep red line, that's all the tankers and container ships heading down to southern Africa. If we look through the Malacca Strait itself, there's a huge amount of traffic coming out of Singapore, but it just depends politically how this is going to work. And the Panama Canal is still, the amount of ships just keeps growing, waiting to transit, hoping for, some rainfall to refill the reservoirs in there and refill those lake systems. Otherwise, that's effectively cut off for any large maritime traffic, which leads a huge problem. So politically now, nothing bound for Israel is going to get in there. They're effectively being sieged at the moment, like a castle siege in the 1500s. And they're having it happen right now. Now, Turkey could cut off their oil pipelines, and that would just be devastating. What's finding is, I talked to a guy who's really adept in shipping. That's all he does, ships out copper. He was telling me that a lot of the copper and raw materials are coming out of South America directly over, heading to Western Africa area anyway to go over to Europe or up to the United States. So some of those kind of raw material, and then if it's going to head to China, they would go below Africa anyway and then head up. Or they would go west and then up. It just depends where they might stop first. So that aside, anything else in tanker traffic, he tried to explain it to me like sometimes there's a big snowstorm and they'll redivert a huge amount of airplanes into an airport that wasn't expecting it, and then they just get jammed up where their entire runways are full where they can't park any more traffic, and then they'll redivert to another airport and it'll get full. And it's going to take them weeks to unblock that traffic because flights that weren't anticipated to be there are now, nothing is on schedule. Because the delays from the first flight delay the second flight, delay the third flight. And you know, like 9/11, when everything got shut down in the air and everything just landed where it was, it took a good 2 months to untie all that. Well, this is the same thing with all of these vessels out there. They're berthed in on a schedule. So now the extra 3 weeks, A, is going to create delays. B, it's going to throw everything out of whack of what was on the first delivery, on the second delivery. And the reason, Malaysia is so important, along with Kaohsiung down in Taiwan, is those are reloading destinations where, smaller vessels from Inner Asia will come to a much larger port, exit their cargo, and then that will be redistributed and reloaded onto much larger vessels heading inter-ocean, inter-Pacific, whatever, outbound. And that's the way it's done. So Malaysia being a hub for that, that's one of their main models, is transferring cargo, especially being on the Malacca Straight. So that's where the Israel blockade comes in on their side. This is going to create a huge mess, and we'll look at a couple things. Already, England is telling their citizens delays in coffee, tea, and clothes at the minimum. And then we have IKEA, which I'll show you the slides here, saying that they're going to be delayed. And if you like this type of content, usually I do 20 to 30-minute videos. This is just a snippet so you could see what type of information is out there. If you like this, join me over at subscribestar/adapt2030 or Patreon/adapt2030. Look forward to seeing you there. Bye for now.